This is the story of one man's battle to produce budget music videos in the early 21st century. My name's Leonard Valve, and this has been my 10-year mission: to avoid court proceedings, bankruptcy, and not to end up living on a park bench. It's a story of people who could start a fight with their own shadow, and quite often do. A story of overinflated egos, tantrums, delusion, and alcohol dependency. Unless we're on a good day. These are the music video diaries of a madman. Episode 2. The Open Window. People often think of making music videos as a dream job. A job where hyper-creatives are able to come together and apply their artistic vision via the medium of music and high-art filmmaking. My God, it actually does sound pretty cool when you say it like that. But the reality is usually far from this idyllic, creatively charged vision, and is more often about egos, bullshitters, crooks, delusionals, and the likes of the aforementioned MC Fishcake. But back in the winter of 2007, I was blissfully unaware of all this. And after the career as an international rock superstar didn't work out, or the minicab driving, or working in a steelworks, a cat food factory, as a door-to-door salesman, or legalised con man as I like to think of it for British Gas, or my 10-year stint at rescuing old TV sets from skips, mending them, polishing them up before selling them by the score to the poor, unsuspecting fools in London's bedsit land. Any increase in house fires in the London area in the late 90s and early noughties is probably purely coincidental. I decided that with the ever-increasing accessibility and affordability of digital filmmaking, my next harebrained scheme would be to have a crack at starting my own production company, as I'd always loved the idea of directing music videos. To be fair, I had also once dreamt of being an astronaut, but I didn't try building my own space shuttle. I had already dipped my toe into the murky world of filmmaking by making the documentary about local singing transvestite Tyrannosaurus Rex using a second-hand prosumer video camera. Then I moved on to my first commercial venture, trying my hand at hotel promotional videos. Lots of dull shots of empty bedrooms and plates of cold food. Unsurprisingly, none of this succeeded in setting the world on fire. As someone who has studied voraciously and almost exclusively at the University of Life, I found myself using some imaginative sales techniques for my fledgling hotel video advertising business. If you're going to start any kind of commercial venture in visual arts, by far your most valuable marketing tool is your portfolio of previous work, as well as having an absolutely blinding showreel. But how are you ever going to get a great showreel if you need a great showreel to get the work in the first place in order to make a great showreel? The answer is, of course, that you have to work for free. The big problem with the heady world of hotel promotional videos is that you are reliant upon the management of the hotel to take you seriously and for them to cooperate and actually make an effort from their side. But in reality, they don't give a flying monkey shit about you. All they care about is linen, sourcing the absolute cheapest breakfast sausages in existence, and disposing of the dead body in room 6 unnoticed. If you work for free, they don't take you seriously, and they tend to put zero effort into providing something nice to actually put in front of your camera, although it would be very much in their own interest to do so. I also ran into quite a few hotels that had already had a video made for them by Sky Home and Leisure, a long-defunct TV channel who would target a load of businesses, such as hotels, in a particular area, and for £1,000 a go, would shoot a very small segment about the particular business in question and put it on some crappy TV show on channel 992 to be shown at 4 a.m. Lame ain't the word for it. But I figured that the moment the hotel management heard the words Sky TV, piss would run down their legs at the excitement of the prospect of their poxy little flea pit of a hotel being on a TV show that was about as exciting as watching paint dry, on a TV channel that has viewing figures that never rise beyond 400, made up almost exclusively by residents of care homes for the elderly with end-stage dementia. I need a piece of that action, I thought to myself. So I developed a system where I would phone a hotel saying that I was calling on behalf of Sky TV. I was effortlessly always put straight through to the manager, who had in my previous efforts at contact always been in a meeting. Using my best nonchalant, slightly arrogant, I work in the media voice, I would explain to the manager how I was looking for quality hotels to feature in a TV show for Sky Home and Leisure. How would you be interested in us doing a piece about your fine establishment? We'd like to film guests in a room, also a selection of your finest food being served. As I'm being contracted by Sky to film, of course there would be no charge to the hotel. But if I was to put a little bit more time and effort into the filming, I could do you an exclusive TV quality edit for your own promotional purposes. And because Sky TV are paying for the filming, I would only charge £500 for a day's edit. Not only did they usually pay up, but they usually couldn't do enough for me regarding the filming, and I gained myself a free stay at some rather nice hotels and a nice selection of their finest food and wine. I always took great care to explain that there was no guarantee that Sky would actually use the footage of their hotel, so I was covered. But I had some rather nice little holidays in some rather exclusive hotels throughout the land that year as a result. Now, I'm not formally trained in filmmaking. In fact, I used to live in great fear of what I deemed to be real filmmakers. And by that I mean people who have actually studied the noble art and actually know what they're doing. By pure chance, just before Christmas 2007, a guy contacted me through my Hotel Videos website to help him shoot a music video in Sheffield. He had hired a real filmmaker to direct the video, and I was basically there as a second cameraman. As luck would have it, the real filmmaker was running about an hour late, so I suggested that we get to work using my camera. Before long, I was lighting sets, shooting the artist myself, but strangest of all, as I ran around, setting up lights and jibs, giving directions like a hyperactive kid in a sweet shop, I sort of seemed to actually know what I was doing. After about 2.5 hours, the real filmmaker turned up with a hired camera, which was the exact same model as my own. And to my utter delight, despite a year of film school, he didn't even know how to switch the damn camera on. He was more than happy for me to take the reins, and I soon found myself completely in my element. I remember being filled with a strange, wonderful energy that I had certainly never experienced filming cold lamb chops in the Scarborough Metropole. In some ways, this badly organised music video shoot in Sheffield had made me feel more alive than anything I'd ever done before. This was my first tentative foray into music videos. Everyone had gone home happy, and I had actually been paid. But better still, when I was later asked to edit the video, I discovered that the HDV tape that was in the real filmmaker's camera had not one single usable piece of footage on it. In fact, his footage looked like it was shot by a 5-year-old playing on their mum's iPhone. The final video was entirely made up of my footage. Maybe I wasn't so much of an idiot after all. The hotel videos had ground to a halt for winter, and the idea of filming empty rooms and plates of cold food suddenly seemed very unappealing. Maybe I had found my niche with music videos. As 2008 dawned, I decided that music videos could definitely be the way to go. But how would one start such a venture? Where do people who want music videos producing go to find filmmakers? And that was the million-dollar question. And one day, I thought I might have come up with the answer. MySpace. Yes, MySpace. Why does that seem to be something from about 50 years ago? But as late as 2008, MySpace was an absolute essential platform for every single band on planet Earth. Every poorly attended gig in every toilet of a venue throughout the land ended with a vocalist shouting, "Find us on www.myspace/ insert name of band.com." MySpace allowed me a way to contact bands directly and offer to shoot music videos for them. 2008 was a long time ago in terms of technology too, and to acquire the necessary kit to shoot a decent music video meant laying out some quite serious pound notes. Unlike today, when you can pick up a high street camera for under £300 and you're away. I invested my ill-gotten gains from door knocking for British Gas in a rather nice HDV video camera and editing suite. The best thing about the camera was that it was a large shoulder-mount affair and made me look and feel rather professional. So with a newfound confidence that having a big, expensive-looking camera afforded me, I drafted a message to send out to the MySpace masses, offering my services at the bargain bucket price of £295 for a full music video. If I could just get 2 of them per week, I'd not only be on a decent wage, but I would be building that all-important portfolio of my work. And let's just think about it. If there's 5 members in a band, it's just over 50 quid each for a music video. You can spend that much on a round of drinks down the pub. It's a no-brainer. How could I possibly fail? I read somewhere that if you do a leaflet drop for your pizza delivery service, you can expect a 4% return. So if you pay a spotty 15-year-old kid £20 to drop 1,000 flyers through letterboxes, hopefully that will lead to 40 pizza sales. Except it won't. Because said spotty kid will take your £20, dump the leaflet straight into the canal, go to Asda, buy 20 cans of super strong lager, and him and his mates will go and get hammered in the park. But you get the principle. So in theory, if I messaged 1,000 bands, I should expect 40 music video jobs out of it, right? If I remember rightly, it wasn't the simplest thing in the world to message 1,000 MySpace users. Lots of built-in spam filters that meant jumping through considerable hoops in order to send each and every message. I blitzed it though, and after 3 very long, back-aching, blurred vision days in front of a computer screen, I'd done it. 1,000 messages had gone out to bands. Even if I'm super conservative with my expectations and not expect 40 jobs or even 40 replies, but maybe 20 or 15. But there'll surely be 10. Or just a couple will do. Or 1. At first, I was checking my inbox every 3.5 minutes. But the days went by and not one single inquiry came along, let alone an actual job. Maybe there was simply no demand whatsoever for music videos. But YouTube seemed to be filling up with music videos by unsigned bands at an incredible rate. Someone, somewhere, is bloody well making them. Maybe it's time for a bit more imaginative marketing. So let's think about it. Back in 2008, when the music TV channels still had a pulse, MTV actually played music videos instead of back-to-back fly-on-the-wall documentaries about Kerry Katona's latest bankruptcy or Peter Andre's latest booed job. Most bands' dream was to be on an MTV channel. So why not dangle that carrot in front of bands? I concocted a message about how we're Round the Corner Films are working alongside some of the country's biggest talent scouts, looking for new bands to submit to the major music channels who are searching for new quality music videos from rising artists. We are being heavily subsidized by several major record labels, and this means that for a limited time only, we can produce you a full TV broadcast music video for the incredible low price of just £295. But hurry, there's only a finite amount of bands that we can take on at this incredible price. Terms and conditions apply. All deposits are non-refundable. Once again, I chained myself to the computer for several days and sent this message to 1,000 bands. Once again, I checked my inbox every 3.5 minutes. Then finally, at 10:08 a.m. on the 27th of March 2008, I checked my inbox and I had 2 juicy, unread messages waiting for me. At last, I had an inquiry about shooting a video. 2 inquiries, in fact. They were both from metal bands. The first was an all-girl outfit. Now, the princely sum of £295 isn't going to buy you a whole lot in terms of exotic locations, pyrotechnics, helicopters, go-go dancers, speedboats, or yachts moored in Monaco Harbour. In fact, if I'm to pay my next electric bill, it's not going to buy you anything other than myself and a very impressive-looking shoulder-mount camera in a disused church. But I had an ace card up my sleeve. A couple of years earlier, when I was looking for a subject to make a documentary about, I'd been introduced to a rather strange, shadowy character at a party who went by the name of 0742. I was told he was an urban explorer. These days, urban explorers tend to be people who break into long-since abandoned buildings or storm drains, take beautiful photos of the decay within, and sell the pics to the Daily Mail. 0742 was quite a notorious figure in the then fledgling Sheffield urbex scene. I'd been breaking into disused buildings ever since I was a kid, long before it was called urbex. Back then it was quite simply called breaking into disused buildings, but usually with the intention of setting them on fire. I had teamed up with a very smelly and utterly bonkers legend that was 0742 on a few of his missions. There hardly seemed to be a derelict factory, empty tower block or abandoned church in the Sheffield area that 0742 didn't know a way into. It soon occurred to me that some of these derelict places could potentially make great sets for music videos. So as soon as I got my first inquiry from the all-girl metal band, I told them of the vision that I had for their video. And guess what? My vision was of them performing in a disused church. I had a particular place in mind, so 0742 and his wife, who went by the name of Monkey, just for the record, Monkey was a bloke, apparently no sex was taking place, and Monkey never spoke other in what was apparently monkey language. We embarked on a recce mission to case out the old church and to assess options for access. After a thorough investigation, we concluded that the only realistic access point was a small open window round the back. All three of us scrambled through the window into the long abandoned, musty, rat-infested gloom of the interior. I immediately had an urge to totally abandon the notion of producing music videos and to instead concentrate on producing Hammer horror remakes using this old church as my prime location. It was an old Methodist church and was a maze of damp, dark, atmospheric corridors with peeling paint that linked a number of cold, cavernous rooms, the biggest of which was still decked out with wooden pews and had assorted trash Sunday school and harvest festival props such as plastic bread loaves, huge plywood crosses, and countless mutilated hymn books strewn around amongst a few skeletal pigeon carcasses. Although the location seemed pretty darn awesome to me, there would be a potential problem with access. Apart from the physical problem of getting amplifiers, cabs, guitars and a drum kit through the small window that we had climbed through, it hardly seemed like good business practice to charge someone money to essentially break into a building through a window in order to film their music video. After a little more investigation, we discovered a back door close to the open window that had been nailed shut.
We'll soon get that window open, won't we, Monkey?
Are you sure you can get it open for tomorrow?
Oh, we'll come back tonight with a crowbar. I'll soon go, that will. Yeah. Look. Yeah, definitely.
You're not going to let me down, are you?
Don't sweat, it'll be done, no fear. Hey, we'll get home, won't we, Monkey?
So the day of my first shoot under the guise of my new business, Round the Corner Films. As I made the half-hour drive to Sheffield that morning in my beaten-up old Jag, with a dismantled camera crane rattling about on the back seat like some kind of medieval guillotine. To say that I was apprehensive would be quite an understatement. What on earth would a metal band of teenage girls make of 0742, Monkey and myself in a rat-infested church? They'd be bound to realise that I wasn't any kind of real filmmaker. Surely they would demand a refund right there and then, strangling my fledgling venture at birth. There is a saying in the filmmaking world that the hardest part of the game of being a director is getting out of the car. Well, never so much as it was for me on this particular day. I arrived at the church in good time and immediately got an ominous feeling when I saw no sign of 0742 or Monkey. That feeling got considerably worse when I tried to call Monkey's phone, my only way of contacting either of them, and it was switched off. This wasn't good. This wasn't good at all. I hardly dared to check around the back to see if they'd barred the door open as promised. I walked down the small alley that led to the entry point, and to my utter horror, the door was still firmly nailed shut. Suddenly I heard voices coming from the road, and what sounded like a van door shutting. Holy fuck, they were here early. Act normal. I took a deep breath and appeared from round the back of the church.
You found it all right then?
A guy of my kind of age, who had been driving the van, who I presumed was one of the girls' dad, gave me a suspicious look up and down.
Ah, well, drove past it twice.
Yeah, it's easy to find when you know where it is, isn't it?
Yeah, stating the bleeding obvious is a really great distraction from this rather wonderful chimp's tea party that I was now the proud orchestrator of. In what seemed like about 30 seconds, all the band's kit, including drum cabs and guitars, had been emptied from the van and deposited on the pavement. Dad, who seemed like he couldn't get away quick enough, jumped back into his van, shouting back to one of the girls,
Just call when you're done, right?
Yeah, okay, Dad.
and with that, the van sped off in a cloud of diesel smoke, leaving 4 peroxide blonde adolescent rock chicks staring at me expectantly. Perhaps the most important lesson I've learned through my many music video triumphs and disasters is that the artist must never see the fear in your eyes. However much of a rabbit caught in the headlights of an approaching boy racer on ketamine speeding Vauxhall Corsa you may feel, the artist must never smell your fear.
Right, okay then.
I said in what was an utterly futile attempt to buy myself more time to try and figure out what the hell to do. It was time to drop the bombshell.
We do have one slight problem.
Oh God, why did I say slight problem? Slight problem always sounds like a big problem. Small problem, or even very small problem, sounds like a small problem, whereas slight problem almost sounds like a setup line for a joke. The punchline being that the slight problem is in fact a massive fucking catastrophe of a life-changing problem. Too late. I've already said it's a slight problem now. So I took the girls up the back alley, if you'll excuse the expression, to show them the small window that was our only access to the building. They looked at it with completely blank expressions before one of them piped up in a monotone, completely unfazed voice.
Yeah, we'll have to lift the gear through there.
In what seemed like the blink of an eye, the rather feeble-looking bunch of petite peroxide rock chicks had hauled their gear down the alley and were precariously lifting their drum kit through the window. Thank the Lord Jesus that they seemed completely unaware of the utter incompetence on my part in putting them in this ridiculous situation. And they also seemed completely unfazed by turning up at a rat-infested derelict church to be met by someone who looked like one of their dads, to be told that the only way into said rat-infested derelict church was through a very small window halfway up a wall. All in the name of supposedly shooting a music video. And to add insult to injury, I was charging them £300 for this privilege. After suffering the embarrassment of having to ask the girls to help me get my camera crane in through the small window, I showed them to the space that I suggested we film the main performance in. And they loved it. We then scoured the damp maze of corridors and dark and musty rooms, looking for interesting props that we could drag back to the performance area to build a set with. We found some lovely weird old chairs, a piano carcass, and the remains of a dressing table that once had a mirror surrounded by light bulbs on it. The mirror had long gone, and only its frame with several light bulb sockets fitted with broken light bulbs remained. This was all starting to actually feel like fun. And by the time our peroxide rock chicks had set their gear up on the improvised set, the whole thing was starting to look like something from a music video. By the time I shouted the word action, anyone accidentally stumbling in on our antics would have almost certainly arrived at the conclusion that there was indeed a music video shoot in progress. Finally, I waved off the peroxide blondes in Dad's van. I couldn't quite believe that from the depths of humiliation and despair of only a few hours earlier, I had risen to such a triumph. I couldn't wait to get the footage home and load it into the computer, where to my delight, I saw what looked to me like an extremely credible music video appear before my very eyes. I couldn't help thinking that after rising from this potential disaster, that I could face almost anything. The shoot that I had the next day at the same location with a second metal band, but this time consisting of a bunch of big strapping lads, would surely be an absolute breeze. Oh, how wrong you can be. Let's just say that the big strapping lads whinged like little pussies at having to get their gear through the window, a task that they first declared to be utterly impossible, until I told them of how a bunch of teenage borderline anorexic girls had yesterday done it without so much as batting an eyelid. If the metal band were unhappy about conditions on set, then their dancers, the satanic sluts, were furious and not at all impressed at having to climb through the window into Rat World. Neither, for that matter, were the police, who later gate-crashed the shoot, just as the satanic sluts poured fake blood over their naked bodies as they writhed in a lesbian embrace, slain upon the altar beneath an upturned burning cross. At least the cops had an interesting story to tell the boys back at the Nick. But hey, that's show business. Next time, I find some lighting gantries in a skip, the generator runs out of petrol, and we set pyros off on the roof of an abandoned nut and bolt factory. 0742 gets tangled up in the barbed wire fence, and we break into a disused lunatic asylum. Next time on the Music Video Diaries of a Madman.